Hello, everyone. Welcome back into another episode of Debate Night. We are back yet again. Thanks to everybody who tuned into the first episode of the season last week. It was a great episode, had some new analysts, and also had our first vote for the People's Champion on Instagram. Hunter was the victor there, 41% of the vote. So not only did he win on the show, but the people agreed with that verdict and made sure to go confirm that over on Instagram. So good for me as the host. I feel great about that result as well. Wanted to mention once again, if you want to be on the show, auditions are still open. Okay, you can go to our Instagram. You can find a link in the bio and you can get access to our audition there. So make sure to audition if you want to join the show. As you can see, we're one short tonight. We were supposed to have another guest joining us, but they bailed out last moment. So we're going to run with 3 tonight, and that's okay. We're still going to have a great show, lots of opinions, maybe some more time for some discourse between them, and things should get feisty. So yeah, like I was mentioning, that People's Champion voting, keep an eye on our Instagram. I post once this episode goes live. You'll be able to go vote for who you think deserved to win the show in case you don't agree with who I awarded the victor. But let's introduce our analysts tonight. We're joined, as always, by Brodie Smith.
Yeah, excited for a little 3-man weave tonight. Should be fun. Definitely a little nervous after the long break to see, am I still man of the people? I am, which is good, but there is a new competitor, woman of the people.
Yeah.
Hannah kind of killed it last week, has a lot of support, which shows me there's a massive bias in the voting over on Instagram. So everyone that's listening and watching on YouTube, go over and vote, because Hunter didn't receive a single vote in the comments on YouTube.
It's a good point. Yeah, Hannah was a fan favorite. She'll definitely be back in the weeks to come. Hunter in the light blue, the Carolina blue.
It's much darker than Carolina. Let's get that straight first off. Secondly, people only go to the comments if they're upset about something. So if you look at the views compared to the amount of comments, the amount of people that didn't say anything, mean they agreed with the take, was far louder. Therefore, People's Champ.
Fair enough.
Social media analytics
also,
lesson.
I was looking forward to going toe-to-toe with Mike. It's a shame he was too scared to even show up tonight.
Ooh, shots fired at Mike. How do you respond? He isn't responding. Jake,
I hope like a tragedy thing happens.
I really hope he's okay.
I hope like a tragedy isn't happening right now.
When I messaged him, I just said we're gonna run with 3, and I was like, hope everything's okay, because there are more important things than the podcast that you're volunteering your time for. And Jake the Snake is back in the building. What is up, Jake? How are we doing?
Is there anything more important than this podcast? I'm not sure. I take a whole hour out of my workday. My company doesn't know I'm doing this. So clearly I have priorities in the right spot here. But I'm excited to be back for this season. I learned a lot last season, and I did learn for sure that the comments are usually negative, but this year they're going to be positive for Jake. This year's going to come up all Jake.
There we go.
Jake the Snake is a dog. Let's get into our topics. Should be a great episode here. We're doing kind of a season preview episode this week because obviously this weekend we hop into the Supreme Flight Open in the beginning of the Pro Tour season. So if you haven't seen the show before, we kind of go current events for most of the year. But last episode, if you didn't see it, check it out after this one. We did our off-season recap, and this is kind of our season preview. So we're going to hop into that with our first topic here. The 2025 disc golf season is nearly underway. Many of the touring players have returned, but some decided to hang it up, citing the financial difficulties of the tour and some other things. Could we see a diminished roster take effect in the next few years, or will there always be new players to replace those who leave? Is the tour product attractive enough anymore to all those prospective players? Brodie, what do you think?
So, my lack of history in disc golf is going to hurt me a little bit here, but I would assume this is nothing new. I would assume that players every year, decide not to tour. I want to say there was a handful of people the second year I was on tour that I was like, oh, where's that guy? Like, that guy's not. And same thing in my third year. Like, what happened to that person? And so I don't think this is anything new. I think maybe what we're seeing is maybe some more high profile, if you will, like people that are more on social media or have bigger followings than people in the past bounce out. And so maybe it feels like it's a little bit more impactful. But I think every year you're going to have, a decent amount of people say, I think I need to find something else. And there'll always be new players jumping in, ready to go. And, the best way of looking at it is look how many people play the lotto. Tons of people play the lotto. Disc golf's a little bit like that, right? Like you do have a little bit more control with the skill and the practice you put into it, but it is a little bit of a gamble, right? Because we all know that there's only a handful of people on tour that make any money. But hey, maybe it's worth a year or two to go out there and try and see where you're at. And, maybe you actually hit the lotto.
Yeah. I mean, hit the Powerball, finishing the cash line at Ledgestone, similar odds.
Same thing.
Thomas, my timer just go up to 2 minutes. Also, there it is. All right, Hunter, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I got to agree with Brodie when it comes to the history thing. I mean, people have been deciding to go play on tour for a long time. I think that why it feels a little different right now is over the past few years, people adjusted to a financial norm that doesn't exist anymore. So there's probably some people that now have a mortgage all of a sudden that can't pay it. There's probably some people that, got a brand new Sprinter van that all of a sudden can't make the car payment on it and so on and so forth. But with that being said, if we're just looking at, is the tour product attractive enough anymore? Really funny question to me, because the tour product's more attractive than it used to be. Like if you go back to before, you're looking at when Paul Macbeth was 16 and these guys are trying to decide to tour or not, they're looking at playing for far less money than we're talking about playing now. There wasn't getting an Airbnb group. Airbnb didn't even exist. There was hop in the back of my Honda Civic and we'll go hop from whoever's going to let us sleep on their couch for the night. And people were still choosing to tour back then. It's a much more attractive product now. And I do think there will always be new players that replace those who leave. I think it's just going to be a little bit of a different adjustment period, just because right now the people leaving are leaving what was a much more lucrative opportunity that has then fallen, which before it was getting more and more lucrative every year. So the people who are ready to grind it out on the road, they weren't normally the ones leaving, whereas some of those are the ones having to leave in this case. So I think it feels a little different, but it will end in the same result.
Yeah. Jake, what do you think about the tour product and the players departing?
I mean, what Hunter was just saying as well, I think I was looking at the UDisc growth chart, the one that just came out, included 2024. We saw 13.1 million rounds of difference between 2019 and 2021, I think it was. And then only about 3 million rounds of difference between now and then. So disc golf boomed. We had these big contracts. It was lucrative. You could have these disc companies saying, hey, 990 rated guys, hey, 1,000 rated guys, come play on tour. We'll support you. But then they started giving out $1 million contracts. And how sustainable is that going to be for these companies? We have yet to see. We just saw Ricky leaving Dynamic Disc for a new contract. I don't think we know the details of that one, but companies might be struggling a little bit to even support their top players. And it might start to be more of a monopoly with some of these bigger companies. So with that being said, I think some of these players are falling off a little bit towards the bottom. They're having to play a lot more local tournaments, local leagues to supplement that sponsorship money. I mean, look, is it attractive? If you're very passionate about disc golf, you can make it work. Guys like Barsby, Nico, they still make it work. And I remember living in Boston, every time the MVP Open would come around, you'd hear about all these local leagues and tournaments where pros were playing just to make some cash to stay on tour. They do it for the love of the game. It's possible, but it is very difficult.
Yeah, it's basically, in my mind, it's like the attractiveness of the tour product. It just took on a different identity there for 2 years, where a disc golf product was only attractive to you previously if you loved disc golf and were willing to make sacrifices to say disc golf is my job. But then all of a sudden for 2 years, the attractiveness was, if I can get good enough, I can be a millionaire. And then now it's like resetting itself back. I mean, think about all the FPO players that popped up that were former athletes, okay? Because all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, if I can get good at this disc golf thing, it's not a saturated sport. There's money to be made. But I think it's just going to revert back to most of the attractiveness is going to relate to just loving disc golf. And then it is, like Hunter said, it is still a lot better than it used to be. Don't get anything wrong on that. I mean, just look at the purse size and that'll tell you that. But yeah, it's definitely changed its appeal. It's not quite the same.
Yeah, just to add on to that too, as these manufacturers and sponsorships, it's really ultimately at the end of the day, that's where like the money comes in, because your money that you're making at these tournaments, for the majority of the people, it's like a break even situation with your travel, your food, your housing, gas, all that. So really the money that you have from their sponsorships is really like the money that you actually are making. You have to pay taxes on that money, which I don't know if everyone on tour knows you have to pay taxes. So if someone does give you, I mean, we've seen it in the past, if someone does give you $1 million contract, that doesn't mean you're getting $1 million in your bank. You're getting like $640,000 in your bank. So I don't know if my math, I think I was pretty close. I think I'm pretty close there. So I think what's happening too is maybe players also, we're starting to see more players understand like financial, like, gone are the days where it's like, oh yeah, let me just go out, and as long as I'm just paying my bills, year after year, I'm fine. I think more younger people coming in, they're more maybe hopefully financially aware. I'm not sure. I'm just throwing it out there of where it's like, hey, I'm in my 30s and I don't have a retirement.
Yeah.
What am I doing? Like, those are things that probably you should, because it is right now a very specific lifestyle for people that aren't making that 1% of the money.
Yeah.
You are having to live in a van. You can't really have a family. You can't have a house. Hard to have pets. Probably can't have kids. You're not going to have retirement. There's a lot of these things that a lot of people, I think, want in life. And I think that's what we're starting to see too, probably more from others as well.
Yeah, I can tell you for free, I've already spoken to numerous young players that are already have that in their mind of like, either they are finding a way out of disc golf or considering it because they want to have a family, and they see that, maybe this isn't the road ahead that they thought it was going to be. It is definitely, for a lot, it's going to be a passion project, and there will be a few that get very wealthy, but it's not going to be the majority. And
last thing I was going to say is, I think some guy this past weekend won on the PGA Tour, and they did like a big write up of like all his, his kind of a journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he won like 1.2 mil, right? Where like a Parker Welk, for example, he has a breakout, I don't know. He just, I guess, just got Dynamic Disc sponsorship, but that was like, it seemed kind of last minute type of thing.
Well, technically he got a DGA sponsorship last year.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying the year out. My point is like, it's the level right now. It's, if you just pop off like Andrew Presnell, I don't think his life is set for the next 5 or 10 years. And he just won a major. So it's a different ball game than other sports where it's like, hey, just keep grinding. If you get that one break, you're set. Disc golf's not like that. If you get that one break, that doesn't necessarily mean you're good to go for everyone.
Absolutely.
So that's another thing that's a little bit risky with it.
The big break that we had was if you were eligible for a contract in like a 1 season window, you may have gotten your big break. Few players got that.
I mean, still, Worlds is still the, like, you win that, you're maybe not set for life, but you're making money for a decent chunk. I mean, Greg Barsby is still breaking in royalties from a Worlds win 6 years ago because his name's on Roadrunners now. And like James Conrad's name on the Envy, like that's what happens in disc golf. So there is still that, where like, at least if you go out and win Worlds, you're probably going to make 25 cents off every disc you sell, and hopefully you get a popular mold. Like, there's no telling how much Kenny's money made off of T-Birds and Firebirds and all that he was on.
Yeah, I would love to know the finances behind that. That would be very interesting. Is like if a non-big name player, I mean, both Barsby and Conrad might not fit that mold, but a non-big name player wins Worlds, what financial impact does that do for them long-term wise?
It's probably tough to calculate a good bit of it, but
it is tough.
But there's value for sure. Well, speaking of a player who is going to be very wealthy from disc golf and is winning a lot of it on the course, that's Gannon Buhr. Let's talk about him. So all eyes will be on Gannon Buhr this season after his historic 2024 campaign. Do you expect a step down, step up, or similar performance to what he achieved last year, and why? Hunter, what do you think?
I think you got to go step down. I mean, the guy, if you include majors in the Tour Championship, won 9 times. How is he going to step it up? I mean, how He finished outside the top 10 once, and that was a 13th place finish on the Pro Tour. There's not really much stepping up to happen. So I'm going to say step down. I think he's still going to win multiple times. I think he's going to win Worlds this year. It's going to Europe where he won the European Open. I think he's going to have great success out there. So I think that, there might be an argument to be made of like it's a similar year because maybe he picks up like an extra major but loses or something. But I mean, 9 wins isn't going to happen. I think 5 wins is kind of where my head's at. I feel like he's going to win multiple times. He is still, when he's playing at his best, no one has proven to beat him. I think there's going to be some tournaments, probably like this weekend, where we might see a better performance out of him than we did last year. He might take this weekend down, but he's not going to be able to defend all 9 titles. So I would love for him to prove me wrong. I'd love to see him get 10 wins, but I do not see that happening. So I think that I'm going to say step down, but I think we have to remember who we're talking about, and that a step down does not mean I'm saying he's going to win once or not at all. I'm saying he's going to win probably 4 or 5 times. He's going to win probably the at least points race and probably have a good shot at the Tour Championship. He's just not going to do what he did last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a tough act to repeat. Jake, do you agree?
Believe it or not, I'm going to say that he's actually going to repeat a very similar performance to last season. Maybe slightly down, maybe even slightly up. I'm more worried about, the consistency of everybody else than I am with him. I mean, he's what, 20 or is he 19 still? Are we saying that Victor Wembanyama is the best he's ever going to be right now? No, he's probably going to get better. He's going to get more consistent. And I think it's the same with Gannon Buhr. I think there were plenty of times he slipped up last season where he could have even added to this monumental performance he put together last year. I mean, he's 19-year-old kid. Like, I wasn't making big time decisions. He's out there winning big time tournaments at 19. And I think that's something to keep in mind. I think a lot of other players, if you look at the top 10, had a lot to prove last year and didn't step up to the plate. Ricky really looks like the only one, in my opinion, that's going to challenge him in any sort of way for most consistent. I could see a few players in the top 10 winning here and there, but I could see Gannon very easily repeating this year. And you know what? I'll go on the limb to say I think he's going to have a better season than he does last year if he can lock in that consistency and if he just slips up less, which, I mean, as a young kid, you expect him to do in the next year.
Yeah. Okay. So split opinion so far. Brodie, better, worse, or the same?
I mean, I think the odds would definitely be heavily favored and worse. Just because of how good of a season he did have and how different the landscape of disc golf is now with multiple people being able to win multiple events. So the odds are just in the favor that he's not going to be able to have as great of a season. Now he didn't. It wasn't like he faltered at any point throughout the season. And honestly, he kind of ended it really well, winning 4 of the last 5 events. So it wasn't like he was like giving us any signs of slowing down going into the off season. But are there new people coming out? Are there maybe some faces that we haven't seen before that are going to be touring? Maybe. Are there some people that have gotten better this off season coming in? Maybe as well. So there might be more people. I don't think there's really that many people that were competing with him that won't be there this year. So I think the competition should only go up. I don't think anyone like top guys retiring or aren't playing. So the competition should only go up, which should make it harder. Now, the only thing is like, we don't really have that much history of Gannon Buhr here. It's not like he's been doing this for 5 seasons in a row. So there is a chance that we did see a fluke or something. Now, I don't think that is the case watching his game, but that is a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely with a season like that, it's very easy to say, yeah, the odds would say it's going to be hard to win that much again. But when you could look at the rest of the field, when you think about Gannon, like his strength is that his product is consistent, right? That's the whole thing, is like, it's so hard for people to outthrow him for 3 or 4 rounds because he just doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And from event to event is just like you're facing the same robot over and over again. So the real question is the field going to step up? I mean, talk about AB, he won 4 times last year. He would be much more likely to have a less consistency or to have less wins this year. And then that's maybe 2 or 3 more wins on the table for Gannon again. So I think it is like, it's ridiculous to think about, but I think I'm kind of with Jake where I think we're going to see the same product and maybe even better by capturing some more majors. But I just don't see the level of dominance is different than like when, you know, Calvin was rattling off all those like podium finishes. I don't know. I just see him in complete control. And already he's been out there in Arizona, you know, getting it done. So
Calvin always had like the Achilles heel of putting, right? Like Calvin would always sometimes on Sunday not having the greatest putting performance. Like Gannon, there really isn't anything where you're like, his forehand's not there today. Like it's all pretty much down the middle. And that's why, like, obviously there's not the history, because if there was, like, he's done this, he's won, you know, 9+ times the last 5 years. Like, why wouldn't he do it again? I think he's probably going to have these performances all the way up to the point of where injuries might come into play. It'll be very interesting to see how he handles that, because he's obviously still young. But as you get older, those things come into play, and he hasn't had to deal with it yet. So I think that might
his ACL when he was like 16.
But that's like prior to his disc golf career, really. So
no,
it was prior to his touring.
He was playing pro tour on that. That's what I'm saying. He's like, we haven't seen him deal with the injury of him having to miss tournaments, not play, and see how he comes back from that. But I think that ultimately might be the only thing that kind of slows him down is having some sort of injury.
And that's the thing, is since he's only gotten better in his seasons, like significant jumps. I mean, who's to say he doesn't play even better this upcoming season? Like it's hard to imagine, but that's been the trend so far. It's definitely going to be it's going to be fascinating to watch and just see if anybody can challenge him early in the season and kind of set the tone there. Okay,
you look at. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Jake. Go ahead.
Just going to add the generational talent argument here, too. You look at any sport, there's always a guy in every generation who just completely dominates or can dominate, and there's little gaps in between. I use the Wemby analogy. You know, maybe LeBron's before him, maybe you have Kobe before him, and then Jordan before him. Here, you know, this could be the handoff between Paul Macbeth and Gannon Buhr. I'm sorry, Ricky, but like, this could be a handoff of a generational talent.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, on to our next topic here. So this one kind of flew under the radar. So I'm trying to bring attention to it to get people's thoughts. So the Disc Golf Pro Tour subtly announced a new match play in-season tournament during a coverage press release. It was so subtle that Hunter didn't even see it. I had to like bring attention to it because I don't even know why it caught my eye. I think I was just like, when I get those press releases from the Pro Tour, sometimes I scour them just to see if there's anything interesting in them. So I would just want to know, do you think this will have any success? Obviously, they've tried some match play things before. And why do you think match play events have yet to stick in disc golf since, they've been tried and they haven't really had any motion? Hunter, what do you think?
I think I started the last one.
Oh, yeah, I forgot with the skipping thing.
I'm happy to go first again.
It is Jake's turn.
I don't mind doing this one. Look, I don't really see where match play really sticks anywhere other than the Ryder Cup. I know they also have the is it the President's Cup that does match play, but match play has never been too popular anywhere unless, you know, the Ryder Cup is almost in a class of its own. It's like this big event, people get loud, it's country v country, it's not player v player. And I think that's why it tends not to stick, not only in disc golf but in other sports as well. Now it's almost like a sport of its own. And I read over this press release, and it doesn't seem like they're approaching it I don't understand the strategy. Adding it on for a few Thursdays before some tournaments, and then that's how you, if I understand correctly, qualify into the final, which is going to take place after the Tour Championship. All that timing feels wrong to me, right? Like it already feels like people are going to claim their wins. People are going to win the tournaments that are on those same weeks, and we're going to call them winners. And this match play almost seems like a fun little concession tournament. I love the idea of doing a match play like country be country, like we already sort of have and do. So maybe just putting more eggs into that basket rather than spreading them across the season. I don't even know if it would be something I would watch on a tournament weekend from my own perspective. Maybe other people feel differently, but it doesn't sound very interesting to me.
Okay. Jake, not sold on that concept. Brodie, what do you think about this match play tournament?
So first off, it's super course dependent, right? Like you need to have the right course for match play and disc golf to work. If it's really just a who's going to par and they're going to lose, like that's going to be very boring to watch. So they need to find a course, and it looks like they've picked Music City Open, Crow and Idlewild. They need to find courses that challenge players to go for specific shots, to put pressure on the other players. It can't just be who's going to birdie and who's going to par, because then you just ultimately are just back to playing disc golf, and it's who's the better disc golfer wins. There's no strategy involved. And I think ultimately that's why disc golf match play isn't really working that well, because there isn't strategy involved in a lot of disc golf. It's a lot of, let me throw it as far as I can. Let me try to make this putt from as far away as possible. Like, there is no real strategy, and a lot of times in disc golf on these courses. And I think you see that a lot in match play when everyone's just doing the same thing. And I think I agree with Jake too. There is a little bit too, where when people are watching a disc golf pro tour event, they aren't specifically rooting for one person a lot of time. I think the majority of people are just watching good shots and seeing from a lot of people. And when you get into these match plays, you really need to have people rooting for people to try to make it through. And I think that's limited in these tournament styles.
Yeah, it definitely puts more emphasis on the specific matchup and those players. Hunter, what do you think about this match play situation? Do you think it can stick?
I think the problem is they bit off too much too quick. I think that what would have been better is to have this just be like a 1 weekend exhibition thing, and have enough money that it's like players will care. And kind of do like Friday is the first part of the bracket, Saturday is like the second and the finale or something, but doing it where you have it at multiple different tournaments. It's what I feel like is going to happen is we're going to forget about it until Music City comes, and then we're going to forget again until Crow, and then we're going to forget again until Idlewild. And what's interesting too is, as Jake mentioned, the finale is happening after the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship in Charlotte, which is 3 hours south of where the Pro Tour Championship's happening. So they're expecting players to now go to another event after. So they're going to go to Rock Hill, South Carolina, basically in Charlotte, come up to Lynchburg for the Pro Tour finale. And then assuming that the players who are still qualified for both, like assuming you even make the Pro Tour finale, you're going to have to go back down to Charlotte to play this match play championship. So I think they just bit off way too much. I think they made it way too complex. This is a great thing of like, hey, the match plays are really working. Let's throw in something more complex. But could it stick? Yes. I think that the big key is the players have to care. Because I think that's the biggest thing, is if the players care and the players are passionate, then their fan bases can get behind them and it could stick. But in order for the players to care, you're going to have money. And if we have a bunch of money that could go towards match play, I think everyone would be in favor of it just going towards the purses in the modern state of disc golf.
Yeah. Brodie.
Also, another thing they do, which I don't know if they're going to be able to fix this at all, that makes it just really weird, is they have like two matches on the same card.
Yeah.
Which is just,
weird.
I might be
confusing.
I might be going up against Hunter and I throw a great shot and like Hunter isn't matching it. Trevor's now throwing.
Yeah.
In his match against Jake. And it's like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Yeah, it's funny because Hunter, the first thing you described is basically what they tried to do years ago.
Yeah, and it didn't work.
And players didn't even show because it was kind of out of their way.
That's what I'm saying. You're expecting them to show on a practice day 3 different times and then show to basically what they tried a few years ago.
And I mean, you said it. It's all about the players caring. What have we learned just recently with the hockey All-Star game thing they just put on, the 4 nations? If the players care, the fans care, and then people even outside those fans care, because then when you throw the flag on
that's
there,
different. The flag's the key there.
Well,
because I watch hockey.
That's what I'm getting to is not only do the players care, but then if you throw the flag behind it, now the fans are really going to get involved because there's that pride there. But I think, with hockey, they're trying to reach a further audience. This is just trying to reach disc golf. So just the players caring and yelling back and forth and getting into it would get the disc golf audience involved. I mean, think about how often we see emotion out of the players. Not much at all. So if there was a disc golf product that existed where the players were jawing back and forth and yelling after making putts, everybody would tune in for that watches disc golf already. It'd be a more entertaining product.
Which would be great.
I don't think this is going to bring that, though.
It's not going to bring it, but...
Well, what about
these guys?
No. I'm not arguing and saying it's going to. I don't think it will at all.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
saying
it
that's
won't.
what would make the product interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
I
won't.
agree. I think it will be forgotten about. It is drawn on too long, and the finale thing is. Honestly, the real question is, I just don't know what their angle is with this. Like, I'm not really sure what
I
they're
think their
trying to
angle
do.
is
They
just
try to sponsor.
Sell
you
tickets.
paid for DGN. We're making it where you get
Yeah.
to watch a little more disc golf.
Make sure
You
that
keep
is
that
interesting.
subscription a little longer.
It's interesting how they
And
think
it
that that's the
doesn't-
value add.
And it also the fact that they're doing it the day before these events, the 3
Yeah.
events, it doesn't really add that much cost to them.
Yeah.
They're already there.
Yeah,
Right?
I don't.
If you're doing a country v continent thing, here's what I think: just mic everybody up, get rid of the rules about courtesy, and just let them go.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Hot mics,
Right?
that could get
Hot
that.
mics would solve a lot in disc golf.
Yeah.
In general.
Get the 8
I mean-
holes. Get the 8 holes from Maple Hill and just put them at every hole. Have them just follow along with every card.
If
And
you
I
had-
guarantee you that's going to get views.
If you had hot mics in general, the clips that would come out, I mean, it's already gotten disc golf in trouble a few times.
Yeah, I was gonna
the
say.
Sarah Hokum incident. But regardless, like the content that would come of that would solve a lot of disc golf's problems. But the problem is players are scared of not being liked. But to be liked, you have to be disliked. It's not, you can't be liked by everyone. You have to, like, to get people truly passionate about you as a fan, like a fan base behind you, to get that passionate, you have to do something that makes people equally as passionate against you. There's no way around it. And I think disc golfers, for some reason, hate that idea. And so instead, they'd rather just all be forgotten.
What if they're just a bunch of nice guys, man?
That could be the case. But I've been in this sport too long.
No, I think they're just all just the sweetest guys. All right. Anywho, moving on to our last topic before our finals here. Just kind of the good old generic, got to do it. Player to watch for MPO and FPO in 2025. Want to hear from everybody. Who is that player to watch, whether obvious or not? Brodie, you can start us off here.
Yeah, I'm going to start us off in the MPO. I'm going to go Luke Taylor here. I think this is probably the odds-on favorite for most people as someone that could be just about ready to break into the scene. You know, we saw him at a couple events last year. Obviously, his performance at Worlds. It seems like, you know, having talked to him on the podcast, it seemed like the pressure did actually get to him. It seemed like that was an issue for him trying to overcome that with some of the putts he had down the stretch. And so the only way to really overcome that is obviously gaining more confidence in your practice and doing it more, but obviously also being in that position more often to where it feels normal and it doesn't feel like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I am here. So I would love to see kind of what he does this season. He's got the complete game. He's a young kid. He's going to put in tons of time too, because he doesn't have anything else going for him as far as, you know, family or any of those outside distractors that maybe some other people on tour have. He's getting into it right now, so he's going to be the hungriest he's going to be. So I like him. And I think for FPO, there's really only one answer, and that's Kristen Tatar. Until someone else makes us want to watch them to see, I think Kristen Tatar is still at the top. I think Missy Gannon is also probably right there at 1B, but it's still Kristen. And so that's the person that makes me want to watch.
Yeah, I like Luke. I will say Luke has that, like, he's obviously very talented, but if you're around him and if you follow him, you can see that he's got that like obsession with disc golf, and he is very young and he doesn't have any distractions, and he's already a pretty good player. So that does put you in the driver's seat for being a disc golf prodigy. That's that's kind of how they make them around here. Hunter, players to watch.
So sorry, I was a little dark. My screen went dark. For MPO, I'm going with, you know, maybe not the most obvious pick, but I think that he's someone to keep on the radar, which is Eagle McMahon. Mainly because last year, coming back from injury, a lot of question marks, and they weren't answered so great to start off. A lot of kind of interesting struggles here and there. Started a season in May. There was some promise, whatever. Then come Worlds, he rattled off 3rd place at Worlds, 8th place at D-Glow, 7th place at GMC, before having a rough finish with 52nd, 27th, 22nd. So what this whole thing shows me is the Eagle McMahon is in there that used to be. It's, can he find it again? Because to be honest with you, arm talent-wise, Eagle McMahon might be one of the best poised players to challenge Gannon Buhr if he can get back to where he once was. I mean, Eagle was in Gannon's shoes, not at the level of dominance, but at the level of this guy, like we were talking about Eagle the way we're talking about Gannon just a few years ago, and then the injury threw him all out of whack. He never had the like consistent success on tour that Gannon did, but we were saying like, who's going to stop this guy in a few years? He's going to have all the accolades he could ever want. I'm hoping to see, could Eagle McMahon get back to being that person on FPO? I promised myself I wouldn't take Kristen, so I'm going to try to not. I'm going to go with the player to watch is Evelina Salonen. Obviously won Worlds last year. I think that if you look at what she did across the season, she had a very good season, a very consistent season. And really what held her back from being farther up on the leaderboard was just missing some events. So I think she plays those events, makes a few more putts. Maybe she's the best person to challenge Kristen.
Fair enough. Yeah. Eagle, it's going to be interesting to see, we give certain players certain buffers with the injury situations, but definitely it feels like it'll be interesting to see what the offseason has looked like for him, like how much work has been put into to kind of get back to his former self, if that's going to happen. Some people just aren't the same after injuries, especially arm injuries in an arm sport. That's just how things can be. But would love to see him get back to the top because he's so exciting to watch when he's playing well. Jake, anybody left on the table for you? Let's hear the players to watch.
Yeah, I knew thought I was going to go first on this one, so I was really confident with my answers. But I'm going to go Ricky Wysocki is the obvious answer for MPO, but the one that I want to bring up, the storyline that no one's talking about for this season, is the Battle of the Robinson brothers and Foundation's newest member, Ezra Robinson. I think he's a big player to watch this year. He's a couple of years younger than Isaac. He's still coming up on his own, and I think he showed a lot of flashes over the past year that just got overshadowed by Isaac's wins. And I think Ezra has a lot in the tank. I think he could be somebody that could surprise a lot of people this season. I just mentioned Gannon Buhr is young. I think there's a lot of young players that could challenge him. And I want to see Ezra do well. I mean, he's in the top 10 right now. And I think if he puts the pieces together, he could win. He had more podium finishes than Isaac. So there's no reason he shouldn't be able to put together some wins this season with the backing of Foundation Disc Golf. You can bump up some points for me saying that. My FPO player to watch for this year was going to be Evelina as well. I think Evelina played extremely well last year, besides some of the events that she missed, obviously. So I don't want to echo too much of what Hunter said. So my dark horse, I'll call it, for FPO was going to be Emily Weatherman. She's coming on the scene as well. She's brand new. She had a fantastic rookie season. And, I think that's just maybe some early tournament jitters, some early tour jitters, but I want to pick a dark horse candidate, and I think she'll do really well this season.
Yeah. Obviously, I think rookie of the year. So great season to start things. Brodie, what is it?
First rebuttal of the year. I was going to pick.
It had to be Jake too.
Yeah.
I was going to pick Emily Weatherman as well. And I was like, let me just see if she's played anything recently. Last tournament, she lost to Ella Hansen by 17. So
that's FPO.
Ella Hansen shot 1 under. She shot 16 over. And
maybe
I was
a long course.
It might have been a long course.
Okay, but
I almost picked Ella too, but I've picked her like the last 3 years. I can't.
You only get so many of those.
Also, there's a question: have Gannon and Eagle ever gone toe to toe, like down the stretch of an event?
I don't believe so.
I don't feel like I remember that.
The best would have been
Eagle has been going toe to toe with anybody in the last 2 years down the stretch of an event, and that's when Gannon's really been.
No, there's a couple events that Eagle's been in the mix,
like down the stretch toe to toe.
Yeah, maybe he phased
He's just
off
kind
a
of
little
been.
bit.
Eagle's just kind of been in limbo, and Gannon really just the last 2 seasons has been when he's been making.
Yeah, I was just
mark.
trying to think. I was like, is Eagle and Gannon ever been on lead card?
Eagle's a weird one
Sunday?
because you guys mentioned like we used to talk about him the way we talk about Gannon, but the thing is, like, Eagle was never the kind of proven winner that Gannon is. There were
talked to him like AB, very similar to AB.
Yeah. I would say because Eagle he won earlier in his career than AB, and then there were times. There was a stretch on the tour. I remember him winning in Portland and then winning another one kind of near that event where he looked unbeatable.
Correct.
2021, he won Vegas, OTB, Portland.
Yeah.
D-Glow came in second at Preserve, DDO.
But those are all open, long courses, and that was always
second at MVP.
Well,
came in second at Preserve, third at Ledgestone.
Yeah, that was always like the knock on him.
I'll say before the injury, he had finally gotten to a place where he was an established like top 5 good player on tour, but it's been a little bit.
Yeah, I can't find him and Gannon going toe to toe.
Because like what he hasn't won the last 2 seasons, right? Like when was his last
Pro
win?
Tour, no. I think 2020, he might have, let me look up. He might have had one in 2022, but 2022, I think, was the injury year because he played very sporadically that year.
It's crazy.
Career win.
That's the answer.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
His last win of significance was the European Open in 2022.
Right, and that was also coming away from an injury.
That was after the injury.
Mm-hmm.
Because 2023, he won 2 silver events, but nothing on the actual Pro Tour. And then 2021 was the year he won a bunch. So post-injury, really just European Open.
Is Eagle going to be the what could have been story?
Now, European Open is the host of Worlds, so if he can put something together, because that European Open was some of the greatest disc golf I've ever seen in my life.
It was crazy. It was
crazy.
He
threw like 1 or 2 bad shots the entire tournament.
Well, because that's him and Paul beat the entire field by 16.
Under.
Yeah, it's 42 under to 41 under, and then Kevin Jones came in third at 25 under. That's just hilarious.
Which 25 under is like not bad out there. Yeah,
no, it was great.
It was a joke. Anyways, hopefully Eagle McMahon will get back to his former glory. All right, we're gonna move into our final topic here. Hunter, Brodie. Hunter, do you want to go first or second?
Give me first. Why not?
Sounds good. All right, you'll have 2 minutes to dissect this topic. So the tour will once again spend a significant amount of time in Europe, this time featuring 2 majors just 10 days apart. Do you think the Disc Golf Pro Tour is pricing out the majority of the tour with expensive travel for potential gain of a new player base and audience? Have they dipped their toes too far into the European market before solidifying the U.S. product? Does that even matter if the European product turns out to be more profitable and popular? A lot to digest here. Gary not here to defend the European game, as always. Hunter, you say you want to go first?
Yeah, I want to go first.
All right, go for it.
I think, well, first off, I think that the one tough part here that we don't know how much the tour played into is the 2 majors 10 days apart in Europe. That's obviously the PDGA's decision. So we don't know how much of it was the Pro Tour planning around the PDGA and how much is the PDGA planning on the Road Pro Tour and how much is them working together. Because regardless, 2 majors 10 days apart, US, Europe, Australia, anywhere is awful, really bad. Because as a fan, you just get all hyped up and one's going to be overshadowed by the other. Hint, hint, Worlds is going to overshadow the other one. So really upset about that, regardless of where it is. But do I think they're pricing out the majority of its tour? The majority of the U.S. tour, yes, but they also priced out the majority of the European talent with the U.S. tour. So that one is a give or take. But the majority of the top talent, if not all of the top talent, will be in Europe. I mean, you're not going to have someone who is a legitimate contender from as far as like week in, week out, not going to Europe. And if so, then do they actually even care about disc golf as it anyways? So I don't think that that's going to be too much of a problem when it comes to a product. I think the real issue is if they've built a majority of a US fan base and viewership base, especially FPO, viewership's going to tank. Because you can't get up at 4 a.m., 3 a.m., 2 a.m. to watch FPO and then be expected to go to work. And then if I cared enough to get up at 2 a.m., of course, when I clock in at 9, I'm going to turn on MPO. So I think that is more the downside. But I don't hate the expansion to Europe simply because if they didn't, someone else would. And with how fast the sport is growing over there, if the Pro Tour wants to be the disc golf tour, they have to think globally. They can't think just US. So I do think they had to expand. Are they doing too much too quick? I think you could argue that. But as long as they have a sustainable system over there where it's not just relying on the people who are running the US tour to also go over there, I don't hate it. I think that the 2 majors is what really screws this year. But that's just because they're 10 days apart.
Okay. Interesting. Brodie, do you agree with that or do you have some differing opinions?
No, I agree. But on the count of 3, everyone, if we were going to open up a franchise restaurant on the count of 3, what would we open? 3, 2, 1, Chick-fil-A. Exactly. Now, if I put a Chick-fil-A by my house here, it'd probably do pretty well. They'd probably be like, oh, well, that's actually a little closer to the next one. I'm going to start going there. But imagine if I brought it to a country that has never seen a Chick-fil-A, doesn't even know what a Chick-fil-A is. And not only am I bringing Chick-fil-A, I'm also bringing Cinnabon too. We're going to have a little Cinnabon in there as well. Imagine the lines I would get at my store if I was the only Chick-fil-A in Switzerland. It would be insane. People would be driving all over the place. And so when I think to myself, like, do I want to open a Chick-fil-A here in Texas by my house? Or do I want to go to Switzerland? Probably want to go to Switzerland. And I think that's what's maybe happening here is if the product is just better, if people just like disc golf more compared to the other sports that they consume in Europe, why not put more money, more effort, more events over there? If that is your business. Because at the end of the day, the Disc Golf Pro Tour shouldn't care about how many Americans are watching it. They should care about how many people are watching disc golf. And if more people are going to tune in and buy subscriptions and go to events and do all that in Europe, then disc golf might be just turning into a European sport.
Yeah,
I think that should be all right.
I mean, I've had the thought before. I don't know how much truth there is to that, just because, you know, the sport has still been like known over there in a lot of European provinces and areas for quite some time. And it's not like it's boomed at this rate that I think it's not outdoing the US, I don't think, in the rate that it's booming at.
Yeah, I don't know the metrics.
So
I think that Brodie's right when we talk percentages. I think the problem is
It's not enough
the problem
people.
That is the people. A small percentage of a much larger pie is still
Right.
more
Yeah.
pie.
I think that's part of the issue. It's a weird one because, like Hunter, you said, like, if you want to be the disc golf tour, you have to think globally. Well, yes and no. Like, I think if you're the disc golf pro tours, you are right in saying they do have to think that way, because if they don't do it, somebody else will, and they need all the money they can get. So right now they're trying to have a hand in each, but ideally they could just keep their product domestic, and there'd be enough money that the best players could all come to them. You know, like that is the perfect world where they don't have to be global, because they can just do it where it's convenient for them, where the viewership is, where the time zones are, like you'd mentioned, and the people would come to them. But that isn't the case. You know, like you said, there is good talent over there. Maybe the talent will get even better and deeper over there, to where, sure, the top 5 might come tour in the US, but then the rest of them that are still really good are still over there. So it's a weird problem that disc golf has. I don't know if other sports have dealt with it, where we're talking about a US originated sport. Its roots are here, but if Europe continues to pool level and their courses look better and they take it more serious, you know, what is the Pro Tour going to do about that? Are we just going to see half of the season take place in Europe? You know,
I thought I misread this graphic that came out, but I don't think I did at all. I think in the last year, I think like 103 new courses were built, I believe, in Finland. And
Norway.
this year,
I thought.
Where was it?
I thought it was Norway.
Is it Norway?
Norway.
Yeah. And then this year, more courses were built this year than last year. So like in the last 2 years, 200 plus courses were built over there. And I was kind of dumbfounded by that. That's a lot of courses. Now, obviously, how many of those are like little 6-hole courses or 9-hole courses that are just whatever? But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting one for the Pro Tour. At the end of the day, they should have all the metrics. They should have all the data of how many people are tuning in, how many new subscribers are buying in when they have an event over there.
Yeah.
And ultimately, at the end of the day, they need to figure out, like, where does the money make sense? And Hunter, did you propose, like, if they had a European division?
No.
Oh, I thought you said something like that. That to me would make the most sense, of where if they had like a group of people over there to where.
Oh, I did. Yes. That's what you're saying. Yeah. If they have them running those events in the US, people running this event.
So you're not having people have to travel and equipment and all that stuff. That to me makes sense, but yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one.
Another interesting thing too to consider is, because we're talking about, we keep saying the word Europe, but the funny thing is it's really just the Scandinavian regions where we're talking about all this
majority
growth.
Yeah.
And they can't play as long during the year as you can in the States because there's snow everywhere. Like they have a shorter window of time that they could even play disc golf. And like that would affect a full tour over there as well. You'd have to shorten the calendar a little bit because, they don't have as much good weather up in Scandinavia. Because when we say Europe, like that's really what we're talking about Finland, Sweden, Norway most of the time, Estonia.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not like we're talking about Spain and England and Italy. There is disc golf there, but it's not booming the way it is in those Scandinavian countries. So it's going to be interesting to see how they continue to, because like right now it's very obvious that they are like, okay, we got to make sure that we're the ones fronting this in Europe so that it doesn't get out of control and somebody take it over. And then also we're going to work on our US product, and something has to give at some point, but we'll see.
Is the marketing side a little cooler too if you did it in Europe?
Marketing it to who?
Like, does that matter at all? Being like, hey, this week we're playing in Italy, next week we're in France, next week we're in Germany. Versus,
well, they're not. That's the thing. It's next week we're in Oslo.
No, I know, but I'm saying if that was the case, does that sound like it could market it more than we're in Georgia, then we're in Tennessee, then we're in Michigan?
To Europeans perhaps, but also.
Or not really.
I mean, it sounds cooler to me, but I don't know.
Right, but that's because we're in disc golf. Like, I think it's really about the
F1
courses,
sounds
though.
like a cooler sport because they're all over the place. Versus golf's like in Georgia, California, South Carolina. Like it sounds cooler when you have the race in Monaco, and then next week you're in Miami, and then next week.
But the courses speak for themselves. Like people think about the Augusta National, like it's the Holy Grail, and it's in Augusta, Georgia. Like it's not in New York City, like it's not in one of these grand
I'd
U.S.
rather be
cities.
in Augusta, Georgia, than New York City.
Well, same, but I'm just saying, like the course almost isolates itself and becomes its own thing. Disc golf courses aren't that way. I would say the European courses are closer to that, and that makes them market well. But I don't know. What?
I'll play the Gary character too, though, and say though, if we're trying to grow the sport, we can't just be focused on America. We got to go to these places because we've seen European participation at tournaments is better. The crowds look better. They look more excited.
What is it? Because the first time they've seen a Cinnabon.
You got it.
It's the first time they've seen a chicken sandwich, and they're going to be so disappointed come Sunday when they can't get it.
That's gonna be tough to tell them that they're not open on Sunday.
Yeah,
that's going to be
tough.
50,000 of them.
I don't know how I'm going to explain that.
But I'm just saying, imagine, the images that can come out of Europe versus the images that could come out of the US could get viewership up as well. If you're like, oh, people actually are really excited about this, similar to the Ryder Cup idea.
No doubt.
The product looks loud.
A crowded Croak Hole Open at that gorgeous course looks really awesome compared to, like, I hate to be that guy, but compared to a not busy event at
Don't do it.
Day Law or something.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it's like
It could have at least shows a tour
there's a parking lot over there.
Parking lot,
or like Eureka Temp. That's another good one. Yeah, I'm going for everybody. Who else is next? I'm done. All right, chime in the comments below. Hunter is our winner today. Back to back. Blue Hunter's undefeated. I did tell Silas earlier I'm going to track the winners this year so we can put up a graphic for you next week. I want everybody's names to have how many wins they have that season next to it.
Don't do it to me.
If things keep going this way, we might have to take away your light blue color. It's a little too OP.
Why?
But if you think that Hunter did not deserve to win, you can go over to Instagram. You can vote for the People's Champion. Maybe Brodie's Chick-fil-A Cinnabon
I thought that one
analogy won you over. Maybe Jake the Snake deserved more points in regular time. That's for you to decide and award the People's Champ, and we'll make sure to let you know who won that vote next week. Also, you can scan the QR code that's going to pop up on the screen for you if you want to submit topics for next debate night episode. We got a ton of submissions so far. I need to look through them all. Thanks to everybody for doing that. I will continue to look through those and consider them throughout the season. The hotter the takes, the better. And obviously, next week we'll be getting into more current events, but feel free to bring up any topic, not just something that happened recently, and we'll discuss it if it seems like a good time. But other than that, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week with another episode.